starting at the top, I've mentioned this a couple times in ClickUp of a true hierarchy. And the first thing that outside of which WMS should I use, the next question is, how do I structure my work management system? And so I wanted to touch on that just very quickly. And I like using ClickUp as an example. Now we can do similar things. It's all different between the three systems, but this one's probably the most straightforward for how to set things up. Typically, whether it's Asana, ClickUp, or Monday, in ClickUp, it's spaces, and Monday, it's workspaces, and in Asana, it's teams. But you would want to set those up with the departments that you have in your organizations. That's the easiest and cleanest way to do it, is just divide up spaces or teams by your department. So you might have finance and admin, you might have marketing, you might have sales, and it just gives every place and every department its own space and its own area to operate. And it also makes it really easy to navigate. So you know, oh, this is a marketing thing. I need to go into marketing and look at it. And the basic setup, I would say, you might want to have something like leadership. You can set permissions in all three work management tools. So leadership, you would want to lock down, and that's where leadership, where executives could operate and discuss things and have tasks and internal projects. You might want to have something like key growth initiatives. These might be tied to your OKRs or your goals or your objectives, whatever you're doing within your organization. And these are going to be your key internal projects. So you could have a whole space for that. Just kind of some examples on how this might work. Now, if you're a B2B or like an agency that have client projects, you might want to create a client project team workspace or space. And this is the most effective way that I've seen to set it up, and tried many variations of this. But essentially, part of this works because we're in ClickUp. So we have the space client projects. And then under a space, you can set up folders. So you see we have 3 clients in here, each represented by a folder. And then within each folder, I'll expand all of these here. Within each folder, we have a backlog, and then we have a set of projects that are related to it. So this vitamin one, we don't have any projects active. It's just the backlog. These numbers on the side here are the number of tasks within each list, which makes it really easy. And you can already see just the navigation aspect of this. It's like, if I want to know what's going on in Super Lumber, our client, then I know our main project here is the Google ad campaign. Whereas like with Tech Bros Pro, it's really fun to say, by the way, we've got a Facebook ads project, and we've got a TikTok video campaign that we're working on. The way that the hierarchy works is if I click into one of these, you'll see we've got two items in this backlog, and I'm just looking at this one list. Likewise here, I'm looking at this one list. This one list has tasks that have multiple statuses. We have tons of views that we can use, and a view is the difference between let's look at these items in a list or let's look at it in a board. The power of ClickUp, and I know it's going to get confusing really quickly, but you can group by all kinds of things, including custom fields. You can handle subtasks in all different ways. You can set filters and sorts and view modes, and then you can save those views so that you can see what's going on in each project any way that works best for you. Some people are calendar people, some people are board people, some people are list people. Doesn't matter. Save the views, create it how you want, create personal views, you're good to go. But where it gets really cool is this is just on the project level. What sets ClickUp apart from some of the other WMS tools and why we shifted to it is if I go to the folder level and go to a list view, I'm now seeing everything within that folder. So here are my 2 lists, the backlog, and here are the tasks. And then here's the campaign, and here are the tasks for that. And if I take it one step higher and go to the client projects space, now I can go down and see everything across the entire space. And what this really means is that I can set up any of these views. Maybe I want to do a Gantt chart that's mapping out every single client project across all the client project folders. I don't have to go and set that up on every client folder or every client project. I just set it up here at the space level, and now I have one view that represents every single project on a timeline. It's awesome. You can do things like setting up a chat. But where this really comes in, and this is one of my favorite things, I can set up workload, which is capacity planning. at the space level or even across the entire organization. So if I come up here, I'll just show you a quick comparison. If I jump into the workload across the entire organization, I'm going to see everything that's assigned to everybody across every team, space, folder, list, you name it. If I want to just manage capacity at the client project level, I just set up the workload view there, and then I adjust some of the settings here. So we might want to see what tasks are in there. We're going to view it for 2 weeks. And now we can see we've got some issues. So this is a hypothetical situation, but user 1 here has 3 tasks per day that they can get done as capacity. User 2 also has 3, but you can say we're 2 tasks over and 3 tasks over for my fake user here. So essentially, a project manager or anybody else could come in and say, all right, this is not something we need to do right away. This could actually be moved to next week. Now we're at capacity here. We got to move these 2 into tomorrow. This one can get into next week. And suddenly we have a fully capable team that can get everything done with still room for new tasks to be added as the time progresses throughout these weeks. And it's a very simple example, but you can see how quickly it is. And each of these have owners. So this user has these tasks, which means when they go to their home screen, they're going to see exactly what they need to get done today, tomorrow, Monday, etc. And it's all built in from there. As we get into, I don't know if there's anything you want to add as we're going through this, Elaine.
One thing on the capacity part is that it helps you look at things from just like the workload for the client, like if it's client work that your team is doing, like what the workload is. But it can also be more of just an internal team, like your marketing team. They're not working on client work necessarily, but you can start seeing,
Yes.
oh, no wonder this team member is so overwhelmed all the time. They are over capacity every single day. And you can start either removing things from them, or you see, hey, my marketing team is way overloaded. Either we need to remove work from them or I need to hire somebody. So that capacity planning can be used in so many different ways. And you actually have insight that you probably didn't have before on what their workload actually looks like. Maybe they are actually working on things that you don't think are priorities, but to them, they think are priorities. So they're creating this overwhelming feeling because they don't know that they're doing things, and you had no way of knowing it because you couldn't see what they were working on necessarily.
Yeah, that's a great point. There's also kind of this human nature thing where if we look at this kind of task list, and I'm just going to move all of these in here like this, I know I am super guilty of this. And I see this with our clients and even our own team. I'll log in and go, hell yeah, I'm going to get all these done today. It's going to be awesome. No worries. I'm going to catch up today. And then at the end of the day, I'm going to look at my list and it's going to look exactly like this because I got pulled into something else, or there was an urgent situation, or something else came up. The reality is, we're all optimistic, or most people are optimistic, overly optimistic on what they think they can get done in a day. And we could do a whole webinar on capacity planning in itself because it does get into, you have aspects of time tracking, you have estimates, and how big is a task, and how do you actually determine how long it's going to take, or how many unknowns and how complex a task is. So internally, we don't use task counts. We do for our account managers, but we don't for our production team. We use essentially story points, which are a way to measure how unknown and how complex a specific task is. And we even built a system so nobody even has to remember how to point stuff. It's done by task type. So every task that comes in gets a task type. It auto gets assigned the points, and the points catered against the capacity. And suddenly there's very little work that needs to be done. All we have to do is move around these tasks to achieve the capacity that we, or the tasks that we need to get done before the deadline, and we're good to go. We've got our hierarchy, we've got our structure, we've got things managed. So let's talk a little bit about how do you actually create tasks that work. So this is part of the collaboration and the communication piece. Inside of this task, so it's just a generic backlog item. This could be something like, please look into why this thing isn't working, or whatever it is, right? A client request comes in this case, it gets added to the backlog. It's not really its own project, but a lot of times a task is created with a task name, and that's it. And then that task sits there, and then the manager goes, why the heck isn't this done? And the person who was supposed to do it was never assigned. So they go, I don't know, I never got assigned the task. I never heard about it. And the due date was never set. So that was never an awareness. But most importantly, no description was given. So my brother-in-law has retired from the Army, but while he was in it, we had an awesome chat with him on how does the Army assign tasks to people. And one thing that really sticks with me is he described how there's tasks and then there's task plus purpose. And if you just create a task and then assign it to somebody, like if I tell Elaine, hey, go patch up that wall in the basement, she's going to be like, well, why the hell am I patching up this wall in the basement? But if I give the task of, hey, go patch up that wall in the basement because a tsunami is coming and it's going to leak and flood our basement, and there's no other contractors that can do it, then she goes, oh, okay, I've got to get, it makes sense. And that's an exaggerated example, of course, but when your team has the reason that they're doing the tasks, they can start making their decisions better. They don't have to ask you for everything. When there's no purpose, the people look at the tasks, your team look at the tasks and go, I don't know why I'm doing this. I don't know who it's for. I don't know what it is. I don't know what the objective is. I don't know what the purpose is. I don't know what the explanation is. I don't know what steps I'm supposed to do in it. So you get question after question after question, and then you go, this is ridiculous. I'm just going to do it myself. It's way easier. So the way to solve all that is to do something very simple. Like every time a task is created, we have an automation that's triggered that props in a objective, a task purpose, a task explanation, an outline, action items, and the checklist for account managers. And essentially, this is a fill in the blank. So this one's filled in, but what's the objective? All right, give some context. Why the heck are we doing this task? What's the purpose of this? What are the assets we need to get it done? A lot of times this is a placeholder, but most times, especially when it goes to the production team, we require that our account managers record a Loom video on what it is. Even if it's just regurgitating this up here, it doesn't matter. There's a reason you're all on this webinar, because it's interesting to see something in video and hear somebody describe it. Same thing for this. If your team has a 60-second video of why we're doing this and what it is, it's going to answer 100 questions right there. The plan outline just comes into what do we need to do. The action items are anything that go into what's happening. And this checklist is things like, do we have the access that we need? Do we have the assets that we need? All of those kind of things. So this whole simple just description thing with an automation that powers this is just another way that creates just immense communication and efficiency. And when the person who's assigned this comes in, if they have any questions, they can just say, tag the right person. Yo, I have this question. And then they can ask their question and post it. And because we listened to Elaine and shut off our email notifications, now we log into ClickUp and see, all right, I didn't get interrupted. I didn't get a ding on Slack. I saw this question. I can answer it. I can even answer it in a thread so that it's all really contained within the context. It just makes life so much easier.
And having that history here in this, instead of getting lost somewhere else, whether that's in Slack or Teams or whatever it is, so that you have that all in one place and you can see that where people commented, ask questions in here. So it's all related on the task that it was meant to be asked at. So you're not getting things lost.